Hey everyone, this is Laura for another exciting presentation into the freight industry. If you're a non-citizen who wants to drive a truck in the US, or, if you're just involved in logistics industry, you're going to want to listen up. The whole landscape for getting a commercial driver's license, a CDL, is going through a huge two-part shakeup. All right, let's get into it. It comes down to this one simple question. Who can actually get a U.S. truck driving license? We're talking specifically about what's called a non-domiciled CDL. That's a license for someone who is legally allowed to work here but isn't a permanent resident. And, well, the answer to that question just got a whole lot more complicated. Yeah, that's because we're looking at a real 1-2 punch here. First, there's a new federal rule that's already in effect, and it's changing who qualifies right now. And second, there's a brand new bill making its way through Congress that could pile on even more rules on top of that. Okay, so first things first, let's focus on what's happening as we speak. The Department of Transportation has put out what they call an Interim Final Rule, or IFR. And let me be clear, this isn't some idea they're floating around. These changes are the reality on the ground today. This slide really lays out just how dramatic this shift is. Before this new rule, if you had a valid work permit, you could, in many states, apply for one of these non-domiciled CDLs. This was a path for people with DACA or temporary protected status or even folks seeking asylum. But now, that path is basically gone. Eligibility has been shrunk down to just 3 very specific visa types: H-2A for farm workers, H-2B for other temporary workers, and E-2 for treaty investors. Just having a work permit on its own is no longer good enough. And for the few people who are still eligible, the whole process just got a lot harder. States now have to run every single applicant through a federal verification system called SAVE every single time. Your license is now directly tied to your I-94, which means it could expire in a year or maybe even less. Forget mailing it in. All renewals have to be done in person now. And if a driver's legal status runs out, the state has to downgrade their CDL, immediately. So that's the new reality today. But wait, there's more. We also have a new bill on the horizon. It's called the Secure Commercial Driver Licensing Act. The idea behind it is to make the whole process more secure and standardized across the country. But it's super important to remember, this part is just a proposal. It is not law yet. Now, this bill would bring 3 really big changes. First up, all CDL tests, both the written and the driving part, would have to be in English only. No exceptions nationwide. Second, it would create a 1-year waiting period. You'd have to have a regular driver's license for a full 12 months before you could even apply for a CDL. And third, and this one is a biggie, it gives the federal government more teeth. The head of the DOT could literally stop a state from issuing these licenses if they don't follow the rules. Okay, so we've talked about the rule that's already here and the bill that might be coming. So the million-dollar question is, what does all this actually mean for you, depending on your situation? Let's break that down. This chart makes it pretty clear. Let's start with U.S. citizens and green card holders. Right now, today, that new rule doesn't affect you at all. But if the bill passes, you'd suddenly be facing that English-only test and the 1-year wait. Now for the H-2A, H-2B, and E-2 workers, you're still eligible, but you're already dealing with the stricter checks and shorter license terms. The proposed bill would just stack the English test and 1-year wait right on top of that. And finally, for people with asylum, DACA, or TPS status, well, the new rule already slammed that door shut. And this proposed bill, it doesn't open it back up. Alright, so when we zoom out and look at the whole thing, you can really see a stark difference between the trucking world today and what it might look like tomorrow. So let's just sum it all up. The reality today, thanks to this new rule, is pretty simple. Way fewer people can even qualify for these CDLs, and for those who can, the process is tougher and the licenses expire faster. The future, if this bill passes, well, that would mean all CDL testing in the entire country is English only, that 1-year wait becomes mandatory for everyone, and the federal government gets a whole lot more power over the states. And don't expect this to quiet down anytime soon. This quote here from FreightWaves, a big industry publication, really hits the nail on the head. They say lawmakers are pushing this from a few different angles. So what does that mean? It means you should definitely expect to see more headlines and a lot more debate while they try to figure all this out. When you put all this together, the rule that's here, the bill that's coming, all the new requirements, it fundamentally alters the pool of who can become a truck driver in this country. And that leaves us all with one final, really critical question to chew on. How is changing the workforce like this going to end up impacting America's supply chain?